If you don't have a relationship of trust, you don't have anything with your child. You can't parent. We lose all of the ability to parent if we don't have impact and influence. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey everybody. To celebrate us starting the pivot this week, I'm sharing a 5-day training I did about a month ago with you all. I'm so excited to share it. It's going to be a great resource for everyone who's starting the pivot with me this week, because we're going to be spending the next 8 weeks deep diving on these strategies. And so looking at them from a 30,000 foot view before deep diving is going to be very valuable and make the work we do in the pivot even more impactful. Now, for those not starting the pivot this week, I want you to listen to these episodes from the 5-day bootcamp very carefully, take notes, do the assignments I'm asking the parents who are live to do, because I'm giving you the entire Connect Method Parenting framework over these 5 episodes. It's the Connect Method Parenting blueprint. When you build a house, you wouldn't even consider building a house without a blueprint. It guides the entire process of building from start to finish so the house makes sense, so it doesn't crumble and fall apart. So when you're building a connection-based parenting structure, you have to have a blueprint so that it makes sense, so that it doesn't fall over, so that it's structurally sound. And that's what I'm giving you in the 5-day bootcamp, the blueprint, the idea, the conceptual way that you would go about creating a connection-based parenting framework and approach in your home. And I really like how I shared it in this training. Every time I teach the 3 strategies, which are the building blocks of the Connect Method Parenting Blueprint, I explain them a bit differently. I explain them in the first 3 episodes actually of the podcast, and they're a little bit different than here. And I love how it flowed out in this training. Now, 2 things really quick to keep in mind as you listen to this series. First, I mentioned a few times that the pivot is happening in a few weeks, which was true at the time, but it's not true as you're listening to these episodes. The pivot is actually starting this week. So if you want to learn about the next pivot, you're going to need to check the website in a few weeks from the time this episode goes live. By then, we will have posted it. And secondly, this was originally presented as a video workshop. So there are going to be times where I may say something about look on the screen or sharing an image, which shouldn't be a problem. I'm usually pretty good at verbally describing what I'm showing on the screen, but just wanted to mention that. All right, you all, let's dive into the workshop. And remember, if you're doing the pivot with me, we're going to be spending the next 8 weeks deep diving on these strategies. So listen to these episodes to help make sure you have that 30,000 foot view. It's going to help make the work we do inside the pivot even more impactful. All right, here we go. Let's do it. Hey guys, we have officially begun. Tamara says she's excited to be here. Yes, I see the results as I'm connected with Kennedy. She opened up about something she's struggling with. Yes, it worked when I tried it. So good. All right, so we're going to dive into the final part of the final strategy. So the 3 Connect with the Parenting strategies are 1, understand your own behavior so you can leave room for your kids, or really for your husbands, for your partners, for your mothers, anybody, all of the things. And we do that primarily by becoming masters at steer and dialing in our daily peace every single day, which is so interesting because something just came up for me. I was just thinking about it right before I started this. So something happened and I realized I need to do my own daily piece on it because my subconscious brain is trying to take me away into never land of catastrophizing thoughts. So it's something that we can use in so many areas of our life, and we got to dial that in. So that's strategy number 1. We spent the first 2 days doing that. Strategy 2, we talked about on Wednesday, creating a connection plan, really being intentionally mindful of creating the kind of relationship we want with our child, being very present with them. Hopefully you all came up with a connection plan of some kind and have tried it out with your kiddos. And then finally, we have branched into the 3rd strategy, which is choose closeness. And we started yesterday by talking about seen and heard, which is so fun. I love the tool. I wanted to ask, does anybody have any specific questions about what we've talked about so far? Any questions about any of the things? I know there was a question inside of the app. You could leave comments under the videos, and I clarified it in there, but I'll just say it to everybody in here just in case you had the same question. The question was about everyone's doing the best they can, regardless. And if you've never heard anyone say that before, it can feel a little bit of a like you could have a reaction. My daughter would probably say like a jump scare where your brain goes, really? Oh my gosh. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know how I believe about that. But when we dive into really just the science of how our bodies work and how our nervous systems work, how we store away situations that are logged as dangerous and traumatic or hard or whatever, not safe, then coming to situations, especially with our kids, with the belief that they're doing their best they can is not as big of a stretch. And then I would say copy paste that everywhere, including yourself. And so her question was, can you just explain that more? How does that work? Or why is that true? And we dive into this deep, as many of you on the call are part of League know, where we really go into different avenues, different reasons why this is actually the truth. But I will just say, if anybody on the call right now has a question about that, if that feels hard to swallow, please comment in the chat because I'd love to talk about it. It's one of my passions to help people realize that we're all doing the best we can and to help them see why we would want to believe that, how that would actually help us navigate the tricky situations better. Okay. So I think we're all good for now, but if you have any questions, let me know. I wanted to go through today the response plan assistant. Now, for those of you who have been in League, are in League, gone through the pivot, are in CMP Mastery, how many of you guys have used Response Plan Assistant? I want honest hands. Maybe you've looked at it. I'd love to know how familiar you are with it or how unfamiliar you are with it. I loved yesterday getting some comments of people who've been working for months, multiple months inside of League with me, and them realizing when we went back and reviewed, seen and heard a couple of new nuances or things that clicked for them or they saw it for the first time. And that's the way our brains work. We get about 10 to 20% every time we get new information. We are able to retain about 10 to 20%, probably more in the 10% range. So that's why going through a review, if you're familiar with this, is going to be very helpful. Going through this for the first time is still fantastically helpful. You aren't going to be able to retain all of it. And that's just the way our brains work. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull up the seen and heard just to review really quickly. So we can just go through that and then you'll see how this blends perfectly into Response Plan Assistance. Okay, so this is seen and heard, which is, I would say, a really good view of how we're going to take the connection-based principles we've been talking about all week, or if you've been studying connection or Connect Method Parenting for a while, how we take all of the principles that we talked about and we put them into a doable tool/structure so that we can go and implement them in real life with our kids. So this is how we have created it. We enter through C. Then we have these 6 inner components that can be mixed or matched however we'd like, kind of think of a sandwich. And then we always end with bridge. Bridge is putting the point of emphasis on the next point of connection. So that's how this works, okay? So this is really a cool framework. And when I first started teaching Connect Method Parenting, this is what we had. And it's beautiful and it can be used completely on its own without any extra support to give you a framework. But what I found is that we are so inundated with how we've been taught to parent or what parenting is. That the discipline is the essence of parenting and that we fix behavior on the end of the off-track behavior or when off-track behavior is happening. And it can be challenging to reprogram our brain. So what we created, this is inside of the tool. If you look at the top of the menu over here, everybody's should look something like this. I mean, you're not going to have, the pivot unless you were in the July pivot, but you should have the 5-day boot camp, all of you, and then the power tools. Now, I'm not certain that these will show up for everybody. You got what you needed inside of the days, but I believe that the Response Plan Assistant is going to be up here, not inside of day 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through it. And I'm going to show you how we have created a choose your own adventure interface that will help you know what to do in different situations. Okay. So I'm going to click that. So the response plan is what you all either created yesterday or already have created. And the pre-response plan, and it should say pre-response, but it says response, but that's good to know that that's right there. And you would edit this and create a pre-response plan. So here's what it looks like. It says edit response plan. But this is really the pre-response plan. And we will be changing the way that says on the app, but this is your pre-response plan. So this is where you all should have jumped into yesterday to create a pre-response plan, meaning how am I going to prepare ahead of time myself, my environment, my child to set everybody up for success. This is so important. So important. This could include everything from I need a nap before bedtime so that I'm up on my game. I need to make sure the kids haven't had sugar. I need to make sure they've wiggled their bodies. I need to make sure that the house, maybe like whatever for you puts you in high alert. So maybe it's, I need to make sure I get the dishes done before we do bedtime or whatever it is, because that sets me up for success. For me, I know that there's certain things that I do that make it easier for me to show up better. So I'm not fooled into believing, even though my brain sometimes wants me to believe this, but I'm not fooled into believing that those things make me feel happy. It's my interpretation of those things that make me feel happy, my thoughts about the things that make me feel happy. However, why would we not want to do the things that we know will set us up to have an elevated emotional state? So, for instance, if I get up in the morning and I have worked out and showered and gotten ready and I've done all my morning tasks, my morning mental hygiene and all of that kind of stuff, and I hit it by 8, 9 o'clock, depending on what I'm including into that bucket, I know that it's so much easier for me. It takes less work for me to feel good about myself, good about my kids, have a regulated nervous system. So even though that doesn't necessary for me to show up the way I want to, even though those things don't make me feel a certain way, I know that that's something that sets me up to have an easier, greases the gear, so to speak. And so what are the things for you that will help you show up better? That just make it easier for you to show up the way you want to show up, that make it easier for your kids to show up the way that you will benefit them. And so be thinking about that. That's what the pre-response plan is. Okay. So we're going to assume you've made a pre-response plan, but you could also use the response plan assistant without making a pre-response plan. I like having a pre-response plan created for all of the tricky areas, but just know you don't have to. If something new happens that you haven't created a pre-response plan, all you have to do is say, use this plan, and it's going to take you right into the tool. Okay. So this is all inside of the app for those that haven't ever seen this. You can play around with it. If you're not part of League, you have access to it for today and tomorrow just to play around with it. If you're in League, this is a reminder to go use this or go play around with it. Now there's a couple ways to use this. I have had moms say in the moment, their brains were unsure what to do. So they literally pulled out their phone and let it walk them through. I've had multiple moms say that it worked like a charm. And the only hesitation that I've heard to do that in the moment is their kids might think they're just ignoring them or not being fully present and playing on their phone or something. And I get that. So that would be the only reason not to do it. Otherwise, it's a fantastic tool. And if you can just let the kids know, hey, I'm not playing on my phone. I'm just trying to remember how to show up the best I can for you. And this is prompting me and helping me. That might work. Or your kids might not worry about it, might not matter. And if you can get over it, it's a great thing to practice with in the moment. A lot of times that lag between knowing and doing is really difficult for us to be okay with and have that discomfort. And it is there. It's part of the process. This tool will help bring the lag closer to the moment, because the things that your brain has been taught inside of League or taught, as you've learned Connect Method Parenting, that you can access when everything's going well, but hard to access in the moment, you'll be able to be reminded. Think of me having me in your ear, like a little earbud where I'm prompting you what to do next. Think about it like that. So you can use it in the moment. You can use it after off-track behavior situation happened and you're trying to figure out how you could have done something different or different ways that you could have handled it. It's a great way to review. You can do it to prepare. So if bedtime's difficult and there's a couple of different ways that the kids behave, or you can see how they're behaving today, you can plan for that. Okay, so let's go to next step. So once you've gotten into the pre-response, or that's the pre-response, that would have said the pre-response plan if I had it. Okay, so you notice that we always are going to start with see. This mirrors perfectly seen and heard. It's just an interactive tool to help you apply seen and heard. So let me read what this says. It says you'll have the best results when you can establish a working relationship before you give directions or set a limit. This involves getting close and establishing a connection. So then I just go through right here. I lay out the C instructions. Get close. Don't try connecting from far away. Get close to your child. Make eye contact. So that idea of seeing if they're responding. Will they respond with eye contact, a smile, a nod, kneel down next to them, look at them in the eyes, notice what they do? You're going to be present. So you're dropping the agenda. You're letting go of the dishes or the laundry or whatever else that needs to be done so you can focus right here, right now, and then try to see things from their perspective, which just allows you to slip into curiosity and compassion versus criticism and judgment. So that's just a quick reminder. We always start with C, just right there. As soon as you enter the response plan assistant, it's going to remind you that C is the gateway. Now, working relationship. So now we're going to ask you, were you able to establish a working relationship? And you get to choose. So we're going to go through this a couple different ways, but let's say you were able to establish that working relationship, meaning you were able to get them to respond to you with a smile, a nod, a gesture, something where you are on the same page, and you would click the top. So then what's the scenario? Do I need to give a direction? Do I see off-track behavior? Are the children dysregulated? Meaning, are they just wild tonight? Am I dysregulated? So you would choose one of these. Let's say the children are dysregulated. Okay. What do you have energy for? So the children are off the wall. They're jumping on the couch. They're running around. You're not really sure how things are going to go, how receptive they're going to be. You were able to establish a working relationship. That is the choice we selected. But you're also aware of how much energy they have. So now you're going to inspect yourself. How much energy do I have? I have the time and the energy to help my child process emotions. Because if I set a limit, or if I tell them to stop running around, if I say we need to go do this thing, they might get frustrated, and I might, it might be a great opportunity for me to allow them to get out some frustration. I don't have time or energy to process emotions. Maybe we have an appointment we need to go to. Maybe we have some hard stop school we've got to get them to. So, that's an option. Or I'm starting to get dysregulated because they're getting so loud. So I'm going to be honest about that. So let's say that I have time and energy to process my child's emotions. Stay and hold. So we set a limit. If I have decided, let me go back just to make sure we see how this all landed. I said that I was able to establish a working relationship. Did I say the children were dysregulated? Yep. And then I'm saying I have time to help my child process emotion, because I'm assuming that I am giving a direction of some kind. So I'm going to hold, I'm going to stay. I've set a limit. Okay. Direction is needed. Okay. So there's a couple different ways. We're assuming that if the children are dysregulated, that we're going to do something, right? So we're going to set some kind of limit. So if the children are dysregulated and they're having big fits, we're going to assume that we're going to do something. And so we might say, hey, time to stop jumping on the couch. So we've set a limit and decided to hold firm to that limit because it's in the best interest of my child and me. The result is an upset. So now we're going to stay and support your child through this upset to maximize their emotional growth and hold a firm limit that is in their best interest. This is the way we compassionately and firmly hold a limit. So I review how to do that all right here, all of the steps, so that you can remember. Even give you some, these are a lot in this one, give you some different thoughts that I have found very helpful, that other parents I've worked with have found very helpful to get them in a place where they don't get dysregulated. Okay. So we would go through that, stay and hold. We're staying with them through their big emotional upset. They're holding. Now, what happened when you stayed and held the limit? Let's say the child re-regulated, so they calmed down. That'd be the best, right? So now we can give an instruction and give a direction. And then let's say when we gave a direction, they listened. We're going to just go the path of least resistance right now. And then we're going to bridge, because that's the end. So we'll just bridge. And then we finish. So then we could start over. Okay, let's start with another one. So we always start with C. Let's say we weren't able to establish a working relationship. If we have a safety issue, we would go in there, and it outlines kind of like set a safety limit, because we need to make sure everyone's safe. Okay, what's the direction? Let's say I'm getting dysregulated. We'll do a different one. And there's a difference. I'm mildly dysregulated, and I could do something called the pivot that we talked about, or I'm majorly dysregulated. If I do majorly dysregulated, that means I'm not in any place to really do much other than keep everyone safe. So we're going to go to a do no harm. Then we're going to bridge. So it walks you through different scenarios. Let's do another one. Let's make a different choice here. Okay. I was able to establish a working relationship. I see off-track behavior, so I need to set a limit. So if you see off-track behavior, it's like, do I need to set a limit is what one scenario, right? Is we need to set a limit. And how are we going to do that? It tells you right here. Here's some statements, right? Here's some powerful thoughts again. then it goes through here. What happened when we set a limit? If they listened, we would go down there. If we listened here, it's just going to go right to bridge. If they didn't listen, but everyone's regulated, right? Then maybe if I'm feeling playful and I think connecting with them would help more, or do I need to hold this limit because it's really important to me? Oh, it's not very important to me. Sorry, that's not very important to me. Then I might do something like a pivot. If it is very important to me, then I'm going to stay and hold. I'm going to set that limit and I'm going to stay if they have an upset, I'm going to stay with them. If they don't have an upset and I don't have to hold the limit, then I would just go straight to the next step about what happened. Does that make sense? So this is a tool there's a bazillion paths that we could go through that would help you navigate off-track behavior. My main objective for you all today is to either refamiliarize yourself with this tool or introduce it to you for the first time and have you go play around with it so that you can see how it works and let it help you navigate things in the future, reflect on things that happened in the past, prepare for whatever might happen tonight. So that would be my priority. So think of it. Did you guys ever have the Choose Your Own Adventure books? Am I much older than most of you? When I was in probably elementary school, I discovered them and I would read and read and read them until I had exhausted every possible outcome. And they were just so fun. So this tool really is adaptable and will help you navigate what might seem like really complex problems in the most simple, doable way. Okay, Kristen, here's a good question. I love it. We'll put that up here. When would be a good point to reach for this tool? So in the situation we discussed yesterday, anytime your brain isn't sure what to do next, I would pull it out if it works. I mean, the only time it's funny, the only time that I've had two moms tell me, they pulled it out in the moment. And I've had many moms tell me they pulled out in the moment, but I had two moms tell me when they pulled it out in the moment that their kids noticed that they were on their phone and were a bit confused by it. And that was the only drawback. They said, but I would still do it again because I could not have navigated it as well if I hadn't been using the tool to help me get to the next step. So I think anytime that you are in the heat of the moment, you're not sure what to do, I would reach for the tool. I highly recommend if you're in League and you have access to this, that you put it as a bookmark or whatever they call it on your phone, where it looks like a little app that you can click. That way you can get access to it really quickly. And, we're still iterating on the response plan assistant. So hopefully it'll be even more and more accessible, but going through the app doesn't take too long. But I would totally use it in that situation. Yes, I love this. I used this for an older teen with shock statements. It was great. Yeah, that's so good. Tamara. Okay, I found common ground and focus there. Over time, the statements are becoming less frequent. The teen was floored and I was fine. I didn't pull out my phone, but having made the plan, I was able to remember what I had planned. Yeah, that's another great way. I'm glad you're bringing that up. That, if we can use it and just become familiar or even write it down and see like, okay, here's the way that you could branch it on a piece of paper and start seeing the different tracks you could go down. That's a great way to become familiar with it. Because I like what you're saying too, is like if you've used it to prepare for possible situations that happen afterwards, it helps the neural pathways start to form. Yes, I love that. It's so fun to see the different ways. How else have you guys used it? So in the moment, to replay and learn from a situation that didn't go great to prepare for the future. Yes. Thanks for sharing how you've used it. So good. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this. I didn't want to inundate you with lots of information today. I wanted to say, hey, for those of you who've been working with me for a while, remember about the response plan assistant. It's a great way to have seen and heard come alive, have the last strategy of, choosing closeness in the heat of the moment become more accessible for you to be able to navigate that in real time. And just remind everybody the 3 strategies. Oh, I like this. I reviewed this plan again after each time there was a shock statement. It has become easier each time. So perfect. I'm glad you brought that up. So she created the plan using the response plan assistant and seeing the different things, wrote it out, reviewed. Well, I think you wrote it out. Is that what you said? Let's see. It doesn't say if you wrote it out, but you made the plan in your mind at least by using it, and then you were ready for it and then reviewed it every single time. So good. That is the pattern. That is the way, you guys. Repetition. And it just plays into the reality that we have as humans, where the envisioning ourselves going through a situation is almost as powerful, almost as real to our brain. Our subconscious brain is actually doing it in real time. Okay, she did write it out. I wrote it out. Yes. So you write it out or you use the app, or you do a combo of both. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to get your brain so accustomed to this new way of responding. The more you do that, the easier it will be to have it be accessible in the moment. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for sharing that. So powerful. Okay, so here's your homework today, you all. We don't have to go for the full hour. We can just cut it off here. You can use the rest of the time to go play with the response plan assistant. Get into the app, play around with this response plan assistant. I will say, we're constantly iterating, especially as the choose your own adventure, million different path scenario. So if you get into it and you see something that could be improved, or you see something that we've messed up on, will you please let us know? Because I would love to make this just bulletproof, this response plan assistant. And it's getting pretty darn close, but the more people who use it, the more that will be able to get it just even better, even more fine-tuned. So let's quickly in review, go through the 3 strategies. And then if anybody who's on here would like to hear about how to continue to have access to this, if you're not in league already, I'll just briefly talk about that. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'll mention that because we do have a new pivot coming up. Okay, so the 3 CMP strategies. 1, understand your own behavior so you can leave room for your kids' behavior. That does include our mind and our thoughts and their thoughts and all of the things, our emotions and their emotions, but we're understanding ourselves, and that will allow us to understand our children so much better, really all of humanity so much better, show up in a much more kind, compassionate way, which I believe all of us humans want to do. So we got to start there. That's first and foremost. It's the first strategy for a purpose. We cannot bypass it. We need to be doing daily peace every single day. And for those in league, keep using the app to do that so that you can get it done and it can be easy. It helps you walk through it all. Strategy 2, you need to be consistently connecting with your child. We have to establish those relationships of trust, and we have to do them for the sake of connecting, not for the sake of them behaving better. They need to be clean. We need to be present. They need to happen consistently. And who you are being with your child is more important than what you are doing. So it doesn't matter how long 15 minutes is max what I would do. I mean, if you're going somewhere with your kids and maybe say you're driving for an hour somewhere, do try to use all of that time to grow the relationship. So any times that we can be more present, be more playful, be more with them, be more on their side, come along things that they're already doing and do it with them. I've challenged some of you guys, to do things that maybe your brain thought, oh, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to watch a movie with them that I'm not interested, or I don't want to play that video game with them. I'm not really interested, or that doesn't seem helpful. You know what? Connect with your kid for now. Do what you can. And depending on where you're at, just get creative, get intentional, build that relationship. If you don't have a relationship of trust, you don't have anything with your child. You can't parent. We lose all of the ability to parent if we don't have impact and influence. And impact and influence, true impact and influence, comes from connection, not correction. I was just talking to a teen about a situation that had happened with her mother. And it was really interesting because I could see what her mom was trying to do. She was coming by honestly, and she was telling her about, these things that she had to do. And if this is going to work, you got to do this, this, and this. And you got to, and it was all, her mother had such good intentions. But I looked at from the teen's perspective, and I could see the impact it was having on the relationship, not even just the relationship, but the child's desire to do these things that they wanted to do. The ironic part was the child it was a teen, wanted to do well at school, wanted to be responsible, wanted to have a relationship with her mother. All of these things that the mom, I could tell, was frantically trying to create because she didn't see it happening. And so she was saying that, well, I'm going to take, and it was just classic, if you don't do these things, then you're going to get these consequences. So that was really fascinating to have that happen recently, to just be reminded again, you guys, the relationship is everything. And to the words she said to me, the daughter of this in this situation, was, she said, if someone tries to control me, even if I want to do it, I feel like I just physically can't. I can't do it if I feel like I have to do it. And, when our kids get to be teens, that autonomy, that independence they're trying to create for themselves, which is developmentally appropriate, is kicking in at a higher level. And so we need to up our relationship impact with them, not so that we can control them, not so that we can manipulate or get them to do what we want, but so that we can have impact and influence, so that they invite us into their life. So rather, so that we are able to help them make the choices that would benefit their life, hopefully instigating some type of spark of interest that drives them towards what we know they already want. But what we don't want to do is get in the way of them going where they want to go because we're nervous and we're not showing up in this deeply connected way. So I couldn't give specifics, but about the situation, I wish I could because it would probably make more sense. But to drive it home, just please, please, please know that if you build a relationship of trust with your child, everything else is going to work out. Actually, I will share a story that happened just yesterday that I think proves this. So we're sitting around the table and Megan, my 22-year-old, picks up my 17-year-old's phone because she didn't have her phone with her and we were researching something. I can't remember what we were looking at, but she said, here, use Brea's phone. So I pick up Brea's phone and she's like, oh, it looks like the screen time's off or whatever. So I needed to give her more time. So I go to put in the screen time password and it doesn't work. I'm like, that's weird. And so I go to do it again and it doesn't work. And I say to my husband, Scott, did you change Brea's screen time password? Well, Brea wasn't in the room when this happened and Brea walks in as this is happening. And she just instantly goes, oh, Mom. And she told me what had happened and how she had gotten access to her screen time password. And we had this beautiful conversation about it. Really, really beautiful. And then we're able to navigate it. The coolest thing that came out of, so many cool things came out of it. I mean, of course, I wish that, we had this conversation sooner, that she had just come to me. But, we're all human. So like, if I was perfect, then I would be able to say something. But there's, like, he who has no sin cast the first stone, as they say. I make mistakes too. So I said, just tell me about it. What's happening? She told me the entire thing, came completely clean with it. And we had a great conversation because she said, I don't want to be on my phone a lot. And then she gave me her reasons for why they had circumvented and how they had circumvented the thing. And you might be hearing this and saying, okay, well, how is this actually a story of success? Well, here's the thing. It's a story of success because the relationship at the end of the day was so much stronger. The trust, she knew that she was safe to mess up. She knew that we still were going to have limits and restrictions on the phone. And she voiced that she didn't want to be on her phone all the time, that she wanted, help getting some more restrictions. She said, let's look at the time. She hadn't really even used that much. It was more just her trying to find her independence and everything. And so because of the relationship that we have of trust, I realized, first of all, she opened up, right? And then the response, if we go into strategy 3, like choose closeness when there's off-track behavior. And clearly this was off-track behavior. She had circumvented the password to her screen time. And maybe we had done very, maybe too constrained with the screen time. But because we had the relationship of trust, nobody's emotional system got triggered. We had a great conversation just about the real topic, which wasn't going to be solved by focusing on the fact that the screen time password had been breached. But really focusing on what I really was hoping to create was her having, integrity, also self-control around the phone. And so we got to the heart of that and some really great stuff came out of it. And I was able to respond in a way that I really respect at the end of the day. And that will lead to better behavior. We're going to the antecedent to the before. So even though the kids are going to have off-track behavior, what we want to do is when it happens to be able to create a stronger relationship on the other side, more communication, more cooperation, more connection, because we mess up too. I scroll way too much. I probably should have a screen time password on my phone that someone else controls. Like the reality is sometimes we have these expectations of our kids that we are not even able to follow. And, my 17-year-old is 1 year away from graduating and being off on her own. So, it is time for her to figure this out. But more than anything, I want her to be honest with me. And I told her next time you're having these, issues with some rule I've set, some constraint I've put into place, just come to me. You don't need to go try to be sneaky behind my back, which she knows. And she said, well, it just happened, like it hasn't been that long. She's like, I felt really bad about it. I've been wanting to come tell you, but I didn't know how to tell you. And, but she got to wrestle with all of that, like not wanting to breach my trust, trying to repair that as well, not getting defensive. So you guys, this works. Does it create perfect children? Absolutely not. Does it create humans that have a huge capacity to handle themselves in so many situations, to navigate tricky things, to come clean when they've messed up, to feel safety in a relationship with their parents? Yeah, it will create that. And at the end of the day, that's what I want. So yeah, I share this messy story where my child literally yesterday, did something that I think for a lot of parents would bring up a lot of stuff. And I just want to say, hey, when your kids have off track behavior, it just is information. It's just telling you something about them, whatever it is. There's some stuff also it was telling me about me in the situation, but the coming together was so good. So do these 3 strategies. They work. They are everything. There's depth to each one of them that we were not able to get into this week. And that wasn't the point this week. This week was just, let's go through all of them and see the big picture. And then we get into depth in league. So understand your own behavior so you can leave room for theirs. Consistently connect so you have that influence and trust. They choose you to be their leader. So they want you in their life. So they don't think you're the enemy. And then, respond in a way. Choose closeness is how I say it, but you're responding with so much compassion and firmness. Okay. I didn't change my standards just because of what happened. And she didn't have to change her story or try to lie or try not to be, who she just got to be clean. She got to be honest. She knew that we were going to make it through. She didn't have any fear. So, I love this. Thanks for sharing this. I love the situation moved from disharmony to repair and leaves a relationship closer and stronger. And that is really what happens when we can show up when there's off-track behavior. But here's the thing. I would never have been able to keep my cool and not make that mean something about Brea and not make that mean something about me if I hadn't done the first 2. The first 2 come before. They are the foundation so that we can actually choose closeness when things are challenging. And to create the neural pathways that support the 3rd strategy, they take the tedious effort, just like going to the gym if you want to actually have toned muscles and eating right. They take that tedious work consistently on a daily basis to get there. So I wasn't planning on sharing that story, but there's been so many synchronicities where things have happened in my just regular life that have been perfectly aligned to what we're talking about this week. Okay, so really quick, I'm going to talk to the 3 different groups of people that are in here. 1, you all who are in CMP Mastery, I love that you are deep diving with me in Connect Method Parenting, attachment theory, nervous system triggers, the whole 9 yards. We are going to be diving into a new topic starting on Monday. I will be sharing that with you very soon. Those who have finished Pivot or are getting ready to do Pivot, love bless you too. It's so fun. I love doing 8-week Pivot with everybody. There will be some switches with this October Pivot just to improve it. So if you did the Pivot last round and you want to repeat it, make sure you let me know. If you did the Pivot and you want to transition into Mastery, make sure you let me know so we can get you in the right place. And for those of you on here that have not done anything with me, you just dipped in here to learn, maybe you found the podcast, you enjoyed it, you found my book, you enjoyed it. I will say we have another Pivot starting October 7th. So again, if you haven't done anything and this is your first exposure to doing a live training with me, this was a lot in a week. we covered some level, the entire CMP framework. We dive into it much slower inside of the Pivot, and we dive into a lot more nuances, a lot more depth, and we have more repetition, which creates the new neural pathways, which will create the change. So we'd love to have you in the October Pivot. All right, you all, this has been so fun. Thank you all for being here, and go play around with the Response Plan Assistant, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a lovely day. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method Parenting Coaching Program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.